But until you believe it, there's nothing I can do to convince you your shirt is striped.
You're tuned in to Leadership Beyond Burnout. This is where we encourage you and your organizations to heal, lead, and succeed. I'm your host today, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, and our purpose is to educate, inspire, and entertain you. Now, as you begin to engage with us throughout the show, you're going to hear some information to help you transform your experiences and your relationships. Now, if you're new here, I'm so pleased to have you, and I want you to make sure that you listen throughout the episode for some of the actionable steps and challenges to be able to integrate into your workplace as well as your life. And if you're a regular viewer, welcome to all of our fired up friends. I want you to feel free to send questions to us during the episode, or you can connect with me later at drkimberlywilson.com. Now, today's episode is going to be sponsored by Leadership and Resilience Consultants, and their mission is to create healthy workplace cultures and to give women tools to recover from and prevent burnout. Let's talk a little bit about our guest today. Today's guest is Dr. Monique S. Toussaint, and she is the president of Monumental Business Solutions, LLC, where she provides executives and aspiring executives with tools, tips, and techniques to identify I'm going to have to do this introduction over. So Miriam, cut it just a little bit before here. There is the word, let me pause it. I'm looking at this, and when I copied it, it said 2W strategies. Is that just...
It says it should be to identify strategies.
Okay. That's what happened. So sometimes when you copy from one thing to another, it'll put different things in there. I'm like, what? What did 2W? I didn't know if that was like your system. So I wanted to be...
No, ma'am. I can drop it in the chat. Hold on.
Oh, I got it. 2 strategies. Okay.
To identify strategies.
That was the only thing that messed up. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm going to start from your name again. Okay.
You look good, though. And I like your background.
Thank you. I'll probably just go re-record this whole section, but let's see what we can get.
Okay. And my name was perfect, so thank you.
Oh, God. Okay, so unpause. How do I unpause it? Oh, I'm still recording.
Sorry.
Okay, you got a whole lot to cut out, Miriam. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, that's fun. The bloopers. That's always fun.
Yeah, that's the blooper reel. Say, Dr. Monique S. Toussaint. Oh, you're still in the frame. Dr. Monique S. Toussaint is the president of Monumental Business Solutions, LLC, where she provides executives and aspiring executives with tips, tools, and techniques to identify strategies and create action plans to achieve career success. Now, this dynamic leader has over a decade of experience in strategic planning, program development, and coaching. Now, after earning her Global Career Development Facilitator credential, she's also an International Federation organizational member as an executive coach with the Treasury Executive Institute and group coach for the Office of Personnel Management Presidential Management Fellow Leadership Development Program. Now, in this entrepreneurial role, she is a thought partner, speaker, and trainer for fellow business owners and professionals. She's a firm believer in education, demonstrated because she holds a BS in Business Administration, an MA in Education and Human Development, and an EDD in Organizational Change and Leadership. She's a woman of impact, and her interactions with Monique usually end with a reminder to think monumental. If you have an idea, she has a plan. And without further ado, let's bring on Dr. Toussaint.
Thank,
Welcome.
thank you, Dr. Kimberly. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you spending the time with us today, and I want to dive right into it and allow you to share how you bring healing to the world.
Yes, I bring healing to the world by bringing happiness to the world. I love to think of our work as passion work, right? We push people into their passion. So what you want to do and what your purpose to do and what you actually makes a difference in how happy you are. So I think if you can figure out how to do what your passion is on purpose, then I've done my job in the world.
That is beautiful. And I love that you started out with you bring happiness, because there are so many things that people engage in, and they sometimes they do it in a way that they just look miserable engaging in
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that we spend too much time at work to not be doing something that we're happy doing. And so I think it's super important as an executive coach to push people to find the things. I don't want to help you find a job. I want you to help you find a career. I want to help you figure out what are you passionate about? How do you do it? How do you excel in this career? How do you pivot if what you've been doing is not what you want to do anymore? And so I think those are some critical things that we have to consider in society because we do work so often and so hard.
Right. And I've seen so many people doing these radical career shifts. Like,
Mhm.
we are
Mhm.
seeing at this point doctors, surgeons with many years saying, I want to be a coach, or I want to paint now. And it's what do you think what do you attribute that to? This radical shift.
So I think there has always been the pressure to possess positions that are of prestige, right? And I think that people that are pivoting now have known that that's what they wanted to do, but didn't feel confident enough to do it, right? So even for me, when I went to school, I was studying computer science. I was excellent at it, did my HTML, did my Java, hated it. And
Oh,
I thank God that I made the pivot in undergrad to do business, right? Because I love what I do now, and even this is like stumble into it. Like when I was in grad school, my counseling professor was like, "You're great at this. You should do this," and I was like, "No, I'm about to graduate. We're not shifting anything. We're done here." And that was in 2007. And I was like, maybe if I had listened to him when he identified that gift and talent in me, I wouldn't be taking training in 2014 to become a coach and counselor when I could have done it, back in grad school. So I think that there's that pressure to identify jobs of prestige, jobs that scholarships will pay for, and we ignore the things we're passionate about because we don't think it'll get us the positions that we think we should be in. And so I think that pivot is, I support it, and I'm excited that people feel confident enough to do that in a place where their space supports it.
right. And I love that you said positions of prestige, and I want to throw something else in there, because
Okay.
I particularly, there's a family member, and I feel like I felt for many years they were going down a path that other family members wanted them to take.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned this a couple of years ago, and they're like, oh no, they da 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 da. But now it's coming back to me like, no, they really don't want to do this, but there will be some consequences if they don't follow these other relatives' dreams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that a catalyst for, like, no, I'm finally going to take on some change?
Absolutely. I think the pressure um from family and friends is what pushes people into positions they don't want to be in. Now, they're successful in those positions because that drive to make others happy keeps them motivated, but inside they're not. And so there's that pressure, especially in minority communities, to be successful in a specific type of position, whether it's to change as the social economic status of their family, or the pressure to just what we think is successful versus what makes you happy and what your passion is. And so I definitely think that the pressure from families and society actually have people in positions that they don't want to be in.
Okay. All right. So that has people in positions that they don't want to be in. So you deal with leaders on such a high level and
Mhm.
in government organizations. Uh, what do you feel has been some of their driving factors in their success?
I think it ranges. So there's ambition and then there's tenure. Like, some people have been there so long. If you're an ambitious person, you're going to continue to seek the next position. And more often than not, in some of these positions, you're promoted because you've been there a long time, right? Or you're promoted because you have the talent to do it, you have the competencies, but it might not be something you want to do. And so I think that in these positions, a lot of people have to do a self reflection, because what you're passionate about at 20 or 30 or 40 might shift over the years because you've
Yes.
done it for so long, and you're like, you know what, I recognize that now I'm passionate about pushing people to do their own thing. So the difference between a leader and a manager is like, I now want to
Mm,
empower people. So as a leader, many people might be shifting to coaching because a huge part of management and leadership is coaching your employees to accomplish a task. And so you see that shift as people get older because they recognize, look, I am not about doing the work anymore. I'm about supporting people to do it. And so I think that's also a shift that we see. Um, and so I just think it's a matter of continual self actualization and growth in people as they continue on their leadership journeys.
mm. Self-actualization and growth. So you make it acceptable or easy for them to acknowledge that, hey, I've grown and I
Mhm.
want different things.
And that's okay.
Is it a hard pill to swallow for those that you've seen, especially with tenure?
I think people have to realize it for themselves, because I can tell you your shirt is striped for 20 years, but until you believe it, there's nothing I can do to convince you your shirt is striped. And so I think my job as a coach is to create the atmosphere, to have the conversation, to say, you know what, you might have been thinking about this for some time. If you do some reflection, you'll see that you're no longer in a black blazer. You're in a, was that pink and black striped shirt. Right. But until you look in the camera or the mirror for the purpose of this conversation, like, you won't see it. Like, you have to see yourself that way for you to accept that as the truth. All I do as a coach is to create the environment for you to do that.
Right, right. Um, and when you talked about being able to have that perspective where we embrace it ourselves, I think that often shows up in what type of leader we want to be,
Mm-hmm.
especially with me shifting from the military culture to the civilian culture. And it was very foreign to shift dynamics and how I showed up in what I was supposed to be, because completely different environment. So I'd love for you to share some more on that, on, you know, taking your leadership style from others that may not be aligned to who you are.
Yeah, I think that our experiences help to curate who we show up as a leader. And I think I was in a panel, remember, a couple weeks ago, for our multicultural alumni reunion, and the moderator, Dr. Jonathan Mathis, was like, "Can you give us an example as your first time as a leader?" And some of us don't think back to when we were children, right? How we were a leader. And I was like, my first time was, my mom has this picture of me on a tricycle with my hands like this and my little brother pushing me. I'm not pedaling, he's just pushing me. And we don't think back to how we show up as a leader in other places of our lives and how that impacts how we become a leader as a grown up, right? And so, talking about that, some panelists talked about being a crossing guard in elementary, being safety patrol. Some people talked about being class president. And I think our experiences help to create what we tap into when we become a leader. And so I can sit in multiple leadership programs. I can take training. I can supervise different employees, but ultimately my exposure, like for in your case, from the military and from my home lifestyle and from my childhood and from my engagements with friends and their experiences in leadership will dictate how I show up. And all I can do is craft those experiences and tap into them as they become applicable. I can say, you know what? I know how to convince someone to push me so I don't have to pedal, right? Isn't that leadership? Like, I am empowering you to get us both from one side of the yard to the other so I can fly and you're pushing me. And so I think leadership is just that. Like, you take what you have and what you've experienced and create who you want to be as a leader. And you have to make sure you respect, you empower, you educate, and you inspire those around you to do that. And your experiences will show you how. And it's unique to you, right? I have a lot of books, but how I implement what I've learned, complemented with what I've experienced, makes me unique in my leadership. And that's what we have to do as we shift our situations where we lead.
So what I extrapolate from that
Mhm.
is that you're saying they don't have to be a purist in that I read this particular leadership book
Mhm.
and I need to be
Yes.
like this. I need to follow
Yeah.
all the principles and all the steps. You can almost have a Frankenstein, but a beautiful type of unique monster. Is that what you're saying?
I think that think of it as being go into a buffet and
Hmm.
you get to decide what competencies you want to put in your plate and what you want to eat in what moment and how you create your own meal, right? So we can all go to the buffet and take different things and walk away full without eating the same thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love that so much better than my little horrible Frankenstein.
Well, I mean, it's almost Halloween, so you might be in a state of mind, hard state of mind, but and it's almost lunchtime, so maybe I'm in the state of mind. So again, our current situations and our experiences have crafted how we want to show up in this space for this response.
Oh, I love that. Um, have you, as a leader, had moments where you felt like, oh, why am I doing this? And had
Oh,
to re-find your passion for it.
yes, yes. I think that for me, I had a portion of time where resilience was the number one competency that I found myself repeating over and over and over again to the point where I had to change the background on my work cell phone to remind me of my why. And I think
Mm,
that's exactly why you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. You have to be working in position, not have to, but you should be in positions of passion and purpose because that will motivate you on the days where you don't want to do it. Because
mm,
honestly, there are days where we don't feel like it. But if you remember your why, I am here because this is my purpose. I am here because I said this is the difference that I want to make. I am here because whatever your reason is, you have to remember your why. And that's the only thing that will motivate you when you don't want to do it. Because we're human and not wanting to do it is a human feeling and an honest reaction for some things. And so remembering your why will always, always get you to um well, get you to do it even when you don't want to. So
so it can be that driving. It's been that driving force for you.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you have any burnout recovery stories or practices that you engage in?
Yes. So when I was doing my doctorate, I was working full time and I had positions on a district level, my Rotary Club, my Rotary District, and I had urban league positions and I had this and not the other, family
I'm stressed out
obligations.
already.
Right. And I think the blessing of the curse of being a strong, independent Black woman is being a strong, independent Black woman. I can do it all. I don't need no help. I'm going to figure it out. Until one week, I was literally just laid out on my couch, burnt out. The impossible. I didn't think that could happen. Like, I am Superwoman. Look at me, raw, all those things. And I had someone call me on my cell phone, like, hey, are you coming on to lead this meeting? And I was like, ugh. I literally had nothing left in me.
Oh wow.
And then so one of my friends got me an emergency therapy session with her counselor, her coach, with her therapist.
Mm,
And she was like, what would happen if you said no? And I was like, I don't know. What do you mean? I got to do this. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. She was like, don't find somebody else to do it. And learning to say no was one of the hardest but most efficient things I've ever done as a leader. And so from that point forward, boundaries and balance have been my guiding principles because leadership is not about you getting everything done. It's about you ensuring that everything gets done. And what that means is you have to equip and empower people around you to do it so that you don't burn out. Because as a burnt out leader, you can't do anything. I was laid out like, I'm done here. Didn't
right.
even log on, didn't even and so I had to learn boundaries and balance, and I had to learn that it's okay to say no, and I had to learn that it's okay to say, I need help. I need help is a phrase that's okay, right? Because leadership, again, is about equipping and empowering people around you to get the work done. It's about getting your brother to push you in a tricycle so you don't have to pedal, but you still get from one side of the yard to the other. You both get there. And so I think my burnout story was learning no, it's okay and I need help. So
Mm,
boundaries and balance is all I can say for leaders. However you define your boundaries, however you find your balance, boundaries and balance will help you avoid burnout at all costs.
right. And I think we hear this so often, and some may be wondering, like, well, so many people are saying this. Why does this persist in Black communities, specifically for women, continually in being those leaders? Do you have any thoughts around that?
I do actually. So part of my dissertation was around Black women in leadership, and there's the societal expectations for women in leadership,
Hmm.
and it almost I don't say doubles, but Black women have had to work harder to be in those positions, right? So we are at the intersection of gender and race. So women in leadership is a thing, but Black women in leadership is like a double prong.
Right.
Um, and statistically, like they have the highest number of EEO complaints in the federal government because we're
Wow,
dealing
I
with
didn't know that.
because we're dealing with gender and we're dealing with race. And so that intersection is super hard because we're always pushing ourselves because we don't want to be the ones to affect the person behind us. That's that additional pressure. That's that the hidden understatement of if she don't get it right, nobody else that looks like her is going to come into this space. Even for me as a
Yes.
young Black woman, when I walk into a space and people think I'm supposed to be the secretary, but I walk up and I'm running
Mm,
the meeting, right? So managing those stereotypes and perceptions and showing up as the leader you're supposed to be. So we're thinking about what should my outfit look like? Because if it's too short, too tight, too whatever, then I'm promiscuous, right? I'm not professional. If I don't speak a certain way, if I don't show up a certain way, if I don't, some people are questioned about what they present more than others based on how they look and how they show up. And I think there's so many additional pressures on top of just being a leader where a white man just gets to show up and be himself, right? But
right.
we have to, from our attire to our hair, right, the whole crown act,
Hmm.
to being questioned, to people thinking we deserve to be there. It's affirmative action. There's so many things that are um, that complicate the idea that I'm good at my job, I should be able to do this, and I'm doing it effectively, and I am the right choice for this position. So I think that additional stress causes us to always want to be on top of our game, even more so than we need. So that means extra hours, extra research, extra, like, what minds am I going to walk into? I can't just think I'm going to present. I know I'm going to present. This might be the devil's advocate type of questions I'm going to get. Like, these are
Right.
the allies I need to create before I enter this space. Like, there's so much that goes into it. I think those coupled on top of, if you're a mother and a wife, and or a wife, right? So thinking about, and or for some people a family member, like you might be a caregiver, so there are so many other things to take into consideration about how much time you spent preparing for leadership, showing that you deserve to be there continually while you're in the position, saying, no, really, I earned this honest. um,
Right.
I think that's why we're always teetering on burnout, because we don't know who to trust. We don't know how to say we need help. We don't want other people to ask for help, but we may not want to. And this is not, these are broad strokes, so it's not,
Right.
all folks, but we may not want to ask for help because it might seem like it makes us less competent in our positions, whereas other people might delegate. So I think it's a heavy burden that we still continue to carry on our own, because we want to be all things, do all things, and we don't feel safe to ask for help. We don't feel safe to say no. If we say no, then they'll say, "Well, I'll get somebody else to do it," and we lose our spot, right? So there's all
Yes.
these it's all these thoughts and feelings and insecurities and realities and stereotypes that we deal with. We just don't feel safe to just be ourselves and to just lead.
Absolutely. And you may be able to relate to this one. I've seen this in different spaces, whether it's academia, whether I'm doing a presentation, whether I'm doing some short-term work. And, you know, Dr. John Hamilton can say, call me John, right? And it'll be perfectly fine. But I can't, if I use the D, I'm being pretentious. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't use it, then I'm being undervalued. And so that's always been a thought in my mind sometimes. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah, no, all the time. Like, I try to be. I think there is a I'll just speak to being a Black woman, because that's what I know. I know that we often don't, women in general don't often feel safe to show emotion, right? And I know for as a Black woman, my one job is to never get angry. Ever at work. And so I think for us, we're always teetering and like, how do I be humble in this space? And part of that humility
Yes.
is, I'm like, well, to me, it's Dr. Mo. Like, do I need to be called Dr. Mo in this setting? Or am I just still Monique? Like, how relatable do I want to be? And then
Right.
how much more respect does it command by saying, no, it's actually Dr. Monique, right? So I think it's a delicate balance, because you still want to appear humble, non-aggressive,
Approachable.
all those things, right? But you also want to say, no, I blood, sweat, and literal tears.
Oh, yeah, mine is peppered with tears. This is just all over it. I don't even see why there's ink on
So
mine.
I know for me, like, I'm just like, no, Monique is fine, because I'm still teetering on, like, how do I show up this way? Whereas I have some colleagues that are like, no, I will call you Dr. Toussaint every day, all day, and you just have to get over it. And so I think that there is that thin line between humility and respect that we straddle in this space, especially as, women with credentials. So I can't give you the answer because I don't know yet. I still kind of, no, Monique is fine, you know.
Right.
Um,
And what I love that you said about it is that it does differ from the spaces you're in and the people you're around and the level of trust that is developed. And
mhm,
so yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic within the numerous leadership dynamics.
mhm, mhm.
So what is one technique or philosophy you believe that can help leaders really accomplish that empowerment more than other things?
I think I'll go back to boundaries and balance. I think you have to be comfortable enough with yourself to identify your boundaries and not just identify them, but articulate them and hold people accountable to them. Like, these
Mm,
are my boundaries. This is what this looks like. I need this by Tuesday. It's due. I have to present by Thursday. You giving it to me Thursday morning is not okay because now I look unprepared, right? And
mm,
that's just a simple example. And then balance, like, no, I'm off on Saturday. I will not, even though I have my work phone on, I will not make that call. And I think finding the balance and the boundaries will help you to become because people will respect your boundaries if you hold them to it, and they'll
mhm,
respect you for having boundaries. So I think boundaries and balance are a great thing. And then, when you have balance in your life, it causes you to encourage the people around you to have balance in theirs. And I think people are walking around more happy. And I feel like my team, we do more for each other because we respect the balance in each other's life. And so I'm like, okay, your mom's coming in town, or your kid has a game, I'll cover you this time. And so when I need to go be there for my sister, I think that boundaries and balance um, create a reminder that we're all humans
mhm,
and not robots. And I think people want to feel seen, acknowledged, appreciated, and respected. And that when we do that to our team members, whether we're their leaders or just peers, that
mhm,
creates an atmosphere for us all to want to excel. Like, someone might say to me, I didn't want to disappoint you, so this is why I did this, versus you told me to do it, so I did it, right?
mm,
I think that's a difference. When people feel like you appreciate their contributions, they want to do it more. They feel empowered to excel. And that's the kind of space we want to create as leaders. And I think boundaries and balance for ourselves and encouraging those around us to have those same boundaries and balance creates that space.
mm. So, what do you think gets created? Because I feel sometimes when people are in that position of leadership, they may feel pressure to produce and perform and really show that they need to be in that position and solidify that, and may take credit for someone else's work and not show appreciation. What does that do to the team if you're that type of leader?
I think that a lack of integrity is a horrible thing to have as a leader. And I think that stealing, because that's what you're doing when you don't give credit, right? In academic space, it's called plagiarism. Like, not giving someone credit for the idea, no matter how minuscule. If it was a contribution, it was a contribution. And so we have to, if I take a quote or a phrase, I have to give credit to it. And I think as a leader, when you step on your employees and use their ideas without giving them credit, it's a lack of integrity on your part, and it causes them to want to not contribute again,
Mhm,
and or look for other opportunities where they feel like their creativity and contribution are expected, awarded, and recognized.
mhm. What do you think that there's anything that, I don't want to say how a leader might delude themselves into thinking that this is appropriate behavior?
Yeah, I do think so. There are a couple things that happen, right? I think that in some spaces, some people are like, well, I'm the boss. It's your job to give me ideas and my job to present. I
Mm,
think that there is a delicate balance between presenting the group's ideas and your ideas. You can present on behalf of your team, right? And say, my team and I met, here's what we came up with. I think your language and how you deliver what you say is crucial to not crushing, for lack of better words, crushing your team, or
mhm,
not, stepping on their necks. Like, you want to know, great leaders want people to know they've worked with great people. You want people to recognize your staff. Like, I have an amazing team. We do this together. And I
mhm,
think that not only empowers your staff, it, you know, it excites the people they're delivering to because they want to continue to work with. Everybody wants to be in a fancy car with all the bells and whistles. So if you have a
Right.
team where everybody's shining and everything's sparkly and everybody's giving ideas, who wouldn't want to work with that team or get a ride in that car, right? So think about that.
Right.
Um,
So going from this, really having a collaborative concept and
mhm,
that how this team works, and that it's, you don't need to be the shiny star on top of the tree at all times since we're
mhm,
getting into
mhm.
that holiday season.
Yeah, no, I mean, so for example, when we do events, we give certificates to everyone. I'm talking about we were at a community college in Chicago. We asked the gentleman, the maintenance guys, what are your names? And we gave them certificates of appreciation because if they didn't come to collect the trash, we would be in dirty rooms. And we had such
That's beautiful.
turnover, right? I think people want to feel appreciated. Everybody has a contribution to the success of something. No matter how small the role, every role is essential. That's like me saying, you know what? My nail doesn't do anything, so I'm never going to get this one nail done. I'm not going to walk around with 9 nails done and a dirty finger because what does this pinky do ever? Nothing? I don't understand. And so I think, I mean, I'm just being silly,
But
but
now that you're mentioning it, I'm trying to think.
right. Like, does it ever really, unless I'm doing a pinky promise, I don't even think when I type this finger, does it go down? It might go down a little bit. You know what I mean? So I think that it's so important. But, this is also speaking from the lens of a coach, right? I eat, breathe, sleep empowerment. But I do think that people want to feel valued. They want to feel like you see them. They want to feel like their contribution matters. So even the little things, I think the person that gets the coffee, people often, and I feel like, underestimate the value of like the schedulers for executives. If they don't say yes and find you a spot, you will never get that meeting. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I think those are the little things that we can never be too big for people doing what we assume to be little roles because those little roles keep our systems flowing.
Wow, that is powerful. Now you've just given me a new practice. It's an extra step, but I think it's such a gift to
Mhm.
do that, to be able to give a certificate to someone in maintenance or the clerical person. That is beautiful. I would love for you to, if you would like to share a challenge with our audience to be able to integrate a shift into their workplace or relationships or whatever you feel is appropriate.
So I think that my challenge to your audience is to find one thing at work that makes you happy and one thing at work that you want to change. And then figure out why, figure out what resources you have to either change it or who you're connected to that can help you do it, and then to do it. If you're not happy in your workplace, then figure out why. If there's not one thing that makes you happy about work, then maybe you want to consider doing something else. But I encourage you to find what makes you happy and to do it. And if there's something you can change, implement it. Everybody has the power to make the change. What did Gandhi say? Be the change you want to see in the world. So my challenge is to use to find what makes you happy and find one thing you want to change.
Do you have any techniques or strategy to help them be able to find their why it doesn't make them happy? Because I think sometimes people might just get, I just don't like it, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times when I do workshops, I start with a vision in that activity. And I think if you can think about, literally, I know that I love chocolate, period. Like, I will eat a chocolate cake with chocolate icing, with chocolate sprinkles, with chocolate fudge on the inside. And I can't tell you why. I just know I like it. I love the taste. I love the way it makes me feel. I love all the things. I think when you're passionate about something, you don't have to explain it. You just know. And if you're in your position because it was the right major at the right time, or it was just the job that you needed at the time because you had a bill to pay, and there's nothing, well, nothing is a strong word. There aren't, if you can't find one thing about what you're doing that makes you happy, then you need to reevaluate that. Think about, okay, my job is an analyst, and there are budgetary things that I have to do, not my favorite, but get done. There are some data things I have to do, not my favorite, but get done. And then there's like communication and outreach. I love people. That makes me happy. So you go through your task that you do on a regular basis and find that one or two that you like to do. And if your job does not let you do that at least 50% of the time, then you might want to consider finding a job that does.
Okay, I love that. Well, Dr. Toussaint, you have given us so many nuggets to be able to consider. And would you like to share your website and how to find you?
Yes, yes, yes. So I am all things Think Monumental. Other than my website, which I should change to Think Monumental, but right now it's Monumental Business. So you will find me
Beautiful.
on Instagram at Think Monumental, on Facebook as Think Monumental, on YouTube as Think Monumental, and I just started TikTok at Think Monumental. And if you have an idea, we have it planned. So don't forget to think Monumental. When you think about DC, the monument is the tallest building in the city, and nothing is allowed to be, no structure is allowed to be taller than it. And so I want you
I
to
didn't know
always
that.
aspire. Always aspire to be the best in everything that you do. Be the monument in your life. So think monumental.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. That was it. Thank you for
So,
having
but
me.
you please finish your sentence.
No, that was it. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Okay. Okay, everyone, you've been watching Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. You can find us here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. And until next time, we will see you later.